Hello and welcome to another webcast in the series on processed foods and health. My name is Alistair Freeland and I'm joined by Dr. Karupaiah from the Faculty of Health and Medical Sciences at Taylor's University in Malaysia. Dr. Karupaiah, my thanks to you for taking the time to speak to us today. I know you are very busy.
Well, Alistair, it's a pleasure to join you, and I would say that we are very surprised that you reached out to hear what we have to say about the topic of nutrition labeling and ultra-processed foods. So we hope that this would be a very good discussion between us.
Thank you. And Dr. Karupaiah, in that paper you just mentioned, you write that obviously overconsumption of ultra-processed foods, sweetened beverages, processed meats, etc., is growing in Southeast Asia. And to ensure consumers are informed about the foods they purchase, labeling is an important measure. And then you go on to also mention that there's some policy inertia in Malaysia when it comes to implementing effective nutrition labeling. So as part of that study, you were speaking to representatives from government, food industry, and also the civil society. Now, assuming we would have all the right labeling in place today, do consumers really understand the health risks, or is more education needed?
I would actually say that consumer education on nutrition labeling is also very important. We need to have a concerted program to strengthen that area, without doubt. This nutrition labeling education is provided in the school curriculum. It's been there for quite some time. And at the community level, there used to be a healthy lifestyle awareness campaign. These were running very much in the last century, the last decade of the last century. And so it was the idea of teaching children to read labels was very much there in the curriculum. And but by the second decade, that is from 2013 onwards, right up to 2020, the public health, the Ministry of Health was organizing very big campaigns on nutrition labeling. See, because this was more or less in parallel to external events such as the interests of the WHO in promoting nutrition labeling, all these. So, you also had professional organizations, the Nutrition Society, the Malaysian Association, MESO, for instance, the Dietitians Association. So you had all these relevant stakeholders, civil society participating. So there is a very strong spirit that nutrition labeling education should be channeled to the public. But one of the things that is there is much of this nutrition labeling education or campaigns that were going on in more recent times is with industry sponsorship. And so it's a matter of what the messenger is delivering, whether it's a coerced or rather rehearsed aspects in terms of the limited labeling that is available. So you know where that leads to. But on the other side, there have been evaluations. We have had the National Health and Morbidity Survey, for instance, and one segment of it looked at how the public is towards being receptive to nutrition information. And it was noted that actually that receptiveness has increased, that there's interest. But of course, who these people are who are interested in the label makes a difference. It's definitely the younger generation. It's been shown that those who live in urban areas are more aware of the nutrition label than those who are in rural areas. Yes, ethnicity makes a difference, and generally the older age group, because for various reasons, as they were very much aware, I mean, at that time it was not important, so they carry on with that. So it's basically the younger group who are more receptive to the nutrition labeling. But all in, I would say is that, yes, I would say that our education is not successful for nutrition labeling. There has to be a very segmented approach to tackling nutrition education, but in terms of the label, because the under 30s, those who are above 50. So these are groups of consumers that need different approaches on education, very clearly that. And especially that it's the older age that we want to warn a lot, that all these aspects of the nutrition label is relevant to the older age. So we have problems, without doubt. We can say that nutrition education, in terms of the consumer literacy, in terms of the nutrition label reading, should be something that we have to structure, organize, and target population segments. That's very much there.
You mentioned the producers as well of ultra-processed foods, who generally obviously are trying to maximize their profits and grow their sales.
Yeah.
They use, creative marketing, they use attractive packaging, large-scale production to lower prices, efficient distribution, etc. So looking beyond labeling, if the consumption of ultra-processed foods continues to grow, do you think that policymakers should consider other interventions?
I guess you're talking about the sugar tax, for instance, or the salt tax. That's the avenue that has been explored. We, in fact, did another project looking at the food environment for Malaysia in terms of public policies. And given the priority areas that we recommended for action, one of these areas was definitely looking at raising taxes for the sugar sweetened beverage group. And in fact, the government here has implemented that in 2019. And they were looking at just beverages. They looked at the sugar level, looking at 5 grams or the 7 grams or the 12 grams. So there was what you call an early initiative of government to look at tax. But this adaptation in terms of how to move it forward to the other groups improved with the recent budget, this year's budget, where they looked at applying it beyond your beverages to your mixed mixed chocolate or cocoa preparations, malted beverages, and such. And but in other words, what I'm saying is that the application of the sugar tax is very much limited as yet. They have not done a comprehensive application in terms of the food groups. But beyond that, in terms of the scope of its application, we are concerned about the quantum. The quantum of tax, to be significant, to impact public health, has to be beyond a certain percentage. And I peg that as beyond 20%. And ours is a very pathetic small percentage. And in other words, we have that where countries such as Malaysia have introduced a tax. The question is, what is this scope of application? What is the quantum of tax? And I think that's very important. Now, so far we're talking about taxing the consumers, but we've never looked at in terms of taxing producers, because that's always something that is something that we should also look at. But I guess the way forward is to give incentives to producers that one for one, if you produce something that is unhealthy and that has got a tax, if you offset it with something that is equally healthy, So these are aspects that needs to be looked at. And I would say that the answer of imposing tax, whether it's a sugar or salt tax, very much depends upon how prepared industry is for reformulation. Some of the reformulation just does not work because the level of sugar coming down is not enough to enhance a product. And the delaying tactics, you've seen that one of the major problems of industry demanding, or rather saying that they don't want the numbers to go up in terms of tax, is also viewed as delaying, and they're slow on reformulation. So these are all problems that you see in terms of when we negotiate with industry. One is, of course, increasing tax and hoping that consumers will cut back. Well, Brazil, I think Mexico has some success there. I think Brazil has some success, but ultra-processed foods, the varieties of foods that are there in the supermarket are tremendous. And the application of the tax are we going to do it for all components, canned goods onwards? So it's a work in progress. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's a work in progress.
Are you optimistic that the trend towards unhealthy diets can be reversed in the next few years, or where do you see us going?
Well, I think it's going to take a long time. There are other areas that need to look at in terms of foreign direct investments, trade, because governments look to trade as a means of improving or growing the economy. And post-COVID, I think we may face some rollback, and that's my concern. That will there be a rollback in terms of government interest in promoting the healthy sector? But I think that there's much in the past 5 to 6 years, there's been much understanding that population health has got different components. It's not just about coming out with specific medical guidelines, but you've got to look at all components of government to support that. And I think that, right now we are doing a pan-Asian study looking at TV marketing. And many of our partners are new to this idea about food marketing. And because most of us come from the old school of nutrition, this is the new school of nutrition, where we look at the comprehensive aspect of making nutrition successful in terms of the whole environment, the food system. So we are hoping of more than just sharing a common project. We are doing cross training skills, and we are doing a lot of capacity building for the younger people, because I think young people are the future. And they are very receptive. They are prepared to accept the fact that the tinkering with the nutrition food environment requires a more holistic approach, a whole of government approach, for instance. It will take time, but it's happening. And we are getting more organized. We are forming groups in Africa and elsewhere. And we think that, I think that this aspect, that there's a greater interest in tackling policies in relation to unhealthy diets in many countries. We are basically organizing that. Look at that. South America has made a tremendous change. And much of the leadership, we observe what's happening in South America. And maybe, I think, probably in the next 5 years, it's going to be Africa, because the African group is getting very excited and they're doing it. So I'm very optimistic that younger people building capacity across countries, it's going to fast track this aspect of work.
In your view, should the media and journalists perhaps play a bigger role also in reporting on the risks of unhealthy diets, and also on the consequences?
Well, one of the things about marketing is it's a revenue for the media. Even the social media, it's a revenue. Advertising is revenue, and the and advertising that is going to be regulated. For instance, they're looking at the children's sector. That's a big chunk of revenue loss that will occur. And actually, you have what you call a Jekyll and Hyde situation, that on one side, the media is earning revenue with what you call marketing revenue. But on the other side, you're asking me about journalists, whether they will carry the weight for unhealthy. I think it's quite important that I think it's very important that media be able to offset that, and that's very it's walking the tightrope. The other day I was listening to a business FM radio, and radio is a great medium, but it's a business channel, and they're excited about interviewing people with new growth business. They're talking about burgers and other things. It sounds exciting, and they talk about revenue. It'll be great if they're able to give equal coverage to someone who's talking about something that is legitimately healthy. So journalism has a great way of, they can play a big role if they were interested. I think they would play a big role in helping to offset the negative marketing.
Dr. Karupaiah, many, many thanks for speaking on this subject today. And I wish you all the very best with your further research. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alistair. It is a pleasure. And I hope that the background of what we are talking about carries some weight for your listeners. Thank you.